and also bring Lisa Rooney, homeopath, my good friend, and she's doing the extended homeopathic hits every month. And we're gonna hit some things related to allergies. Well, she'll tell you about it, and then we have a homeopathic hit later. Again, if you go to Vibrant Life 24/7, and many of you have, you guys take advantage of the 20 minutes. I don't mean to abuse Lisa with 20-minute interviews with her to say, hey, but if you're serious and want help, she's here for it. She said so. You said so, Lisa.
I said so, yes. Hello.
Hi, good to see you. Now, as a parent, you're a parent, I'm a parent, Super Don's a parent, he's a grandparent. Uh, I cover this story about the measles, tragic, not measles death, but tragic death nonetheless, and seeing the danger of allopathic medicine revealed in this. And thank God the parents are willing to talk about it, even in the midst of this tragedy. And I thought you might have some thoughts about it as well.
I wasn't aware of the story as we talked a little bit before we went on. I had this massive sinus infection that hit me this last week, and so I've really been kind of out of all the news. I was wondering what was going on with all the measles um, mania that was, seemed to be rising to the surface. But that what a tragic story. I'm so sorry to hear that. I pulled up in my book. I have a book that is one that I used when my kids were younger to see like what are some of the treatments for measles? What are some of the things that people can do
Yeah.
homeopathic for measles? And I don't know if I can bring this book up, but this is
Yeah.
the yeah, okay. This
Oh,
is
let's reverse our camera, Super Don, if you don't mind, because I'm looking at it backwards. There it is.
yeah.
Vaccine-free prevention and treatments of infectious contagious disease with homeopathy. I love that you brought that up. Are you kidding me? This is the kind of stuff we need to have out there in the mainstream of American thought once again.
Yeah, and so this is written by Kate Birch. This is a fantastic book. It's been
We've
out
had
for
Kate on before over the years. She's a wonderful homeopath.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
She talks about some really good key remedies. One that I think was that just blew my mind was pulsatilla. Pulsatilla is a great remedy for preventative. If she says if you're traveling to an area where measles is epidemic, then pulsatilla 30 once weekly can help to prevent the infection.
Nice. Yeah.
So I think that's amazing. And then I think also within the homeopathic sphere, we have morbillium, which is a remedy that is made from someone who was infected with measles.
Yes. Yeah. And this is where we get into another thing that's not discussed. Of all the things that are happening with good stuff that we were, discuss about HHS and Bobby Kennedy, there's still in any of these discussions in congressional hearings, I've never heard them mention the word homeoprophylaxis once.
Hmm.
And yet I don't know what the significant number, if it's up to millions yet of people utilizing it, but still it's a significant part of our history in America that has been lost over the 20th century into the 21st. And dagnammit, I'm gonna help to bring it back, and I know you are too, Lisa.
Yeah, and I think from the standpoint of a parent, it is a really viable option to help ease the fear of some of these illnesses. Now, I won't call it an apples to apples comparison, um, but it's educating the immune system in such a way that should you come in contact with some of these infectious diseases, you're either not going to get it or you're going to get a more mild case, which gives you a lot of ability if you're educating yourself, especially in things like homeopathy or herbals or all the things that we're talking about. Even if you get a case of measles after having done a homeoprophylaxis program for measles, the case is going to be so much more milder, which gives you the ability to work through and treat it kind
Yes.
of, you know.
Well, and I know, Lisa, this is not the focal point of this hour, but I'm grateful that you're here so we can chat about this in a way that people don't often see. Two homeopaths conversing about this.
Yeah.
And the idea of vaccination is kind of like, well, isn't that the same thing? They say they hear it, you hear what you're saying, a milder case. Well, yes, it's in maybe the intent initially, but what it's manifested into is a disastrous disease causing mechanism that may suppress the what I call the expression
Mhm.
of the so-called disease, but at what cost? Driving in deep into what we call chronicity. And this is part of the Bobby Kennedy Maha program. It's like, why all the chronic disease? Let's look at the vaccination program. Whereas
Right.
with homeoprophylaxis, we do not introduce anything that could potentially cause you to become ill, sick, or chronically ill or otherwise, and yet sensitize safely. if that's your intent and that's what you'd like to do, much less from the standpoint of reaction and treatment. We have a safer mechanism and mechanisms to do that with these remedies. So I throw it out there just for everybody's consideration. I know that here in this audience, you guys are mostly ready for it and already know about it, but we have a growing audience each week. We don't know where people are coming from. Despite our shadow banning and other limitations, you guys are finding us or sharing us. So thank you for that. And Lisa, again, thank you for doing the amazing work you're doing, including where we're going to go today in a moment.
Right back at you.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I think, I'm always my focus is always, on what can we do as parents to raise our children up with a strong vital force. The homeoprophylaxis program does just that. And there are many people out there that use it alongside of the standard vaccine program where they, kind of alternate, they choose a little bit. Like there's lots and lots and lots of options. And there's tremendous research, especially if you look up any of the information that Dr. Isaac Golden has put out there. He's like
Yeah.
the a researcher on the homeoprophylaxis program. So I always think it's a very, very great option. And I really encourage parents to take a look at it and just educate yourself on the disease. What is measles? What does it look like when it comes? What are the treatments? What are the natural treatments? What are the homeopathic treatments? What are the complications from it? If you have all of that, it all ahead of time, then you can come up with a plan. And that's exactly what I did. I dove way into research about all of these infectious diseases. I went out to, Mayo Clinic and, Cleveland Clinic and all those things and really educated myself on what do these illnesses look like? What is the severity? How do they show up? And when do I need to go to the hospital? When can I treat it at home? And what do I need to do to treat them? And that's what the book came
Yes,
in.
exactly. Well, and I bring up the hospital allopathic intervention. There's a place for it. We've never argued there isn't. But when you go into the hospital, what you think would be a reasonable expectation that they're actually going to care for you appropriately. And in this case of this tragic death of the 6-year-old, we see another case of why medical errors or iatrogenic causes of death are the third, if not second or first, depending on how you run the numbers, leading cause of death. So you don't take it lightly, and I'm not saying that people do, but you can't. I don't know that you can reasonably expect that you're going to be cared for appropriately, even in with their expertise, and that's where you have to have so much protection. People asking questions like somebody with you that's your protector while you're in the midst of a hospital scenario, which didn't happen, of course, during COVID. So here's another case where parents trusting the doctors because they had nowhere else to turn at that moment are left with the loss of a child. And we'd like to see that not be a regular occurrence. I'd love to say it never again. I can't control it, but certainly by what we talk about here, it could help prevent this from happening for those that are listening now.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, my heart goes out to that family. I hope that they find some peace.
Yeah.
Eventually, I know it's going to be a long road for them.
Now, Lisa, on the discussion point today and a ditch and switch related to allergies coming in Georgia for 30 years, I grew up. I was asking you before we went to air, has the air turned yellow or the car is covered in yellow? I remember the pollen, the pine pollen. And at
It's
the time,
starting.
I couldn't go outside. I was like miserable as a child, just congested, like eyes watery. I mean, just horrible feelings. It's like visceral. I can remember it so well, like it was yesterday. And now I have none of those issues. I can be in a sea of pollen and I'm like, oh, the wonderful smells of spring, bring it on. I'm like, that was not me back then. And I relied on allopathic medicine. I remember Dimetap and Chlor. I don't know all the names. I had Afrin nasal sprays. I was doing allergy shots, antihistamines, you
Mhm.
name it. That was my upbringing. I was the poster boy for every allergy known to man. So let's lead into something I didn't know growing up. I wish I had. I wouldn't have had to use all those drugs that, by the way, some of them they had to reformulate because they were killing children, some of them. And I was
Mhm.
like, now I feel lucky to be alive. So
Right.
seriously, allopathic to homeopathic, what kind of options do we have?
Yeah, so we're talking about hay fever. It's also called allergic rhinitis. It's, allergens to the environment, pollens, grass, dust mites, molds, even animal dander, all of those kind of things. And the symptoms that people typically experience are sneezing, itchy and watery eyes, a runny nose, maybe a congested nose, burning sensation, burning like tears or burning, in the nose, postnasal drip, sinus congestion, pressure headaches. That's what I have been going through. Mine are not from hay fever. I literally got a sinus infection. But boy, are those miserable.
Hmm.
Headaches, fatigue, difficulty concentrating, difficulty focusing because your head is, so stuffed and full. You might have a decreased sense of smell. And these tend to be seasonal. They come, and not only spring season. Some people have fall season allergies as well. So, and if you're unfortunate, you have both of them, which makes for rough living. So, the pharmaceuticals that are typically used for hay fever are antihistamines, decongestants, corticosteroids, and
Hmm.
then in really severe cases, you might get some mast cell stabilizers, which are more prescriptions. We're not talking so much about prescriptions today. We're just talking about over the counters and our ditch and switch. So, antihistamines are designed to block the histamine response. Your decongestants are designed to reduce that nasal
Hmm.
swelling, and the corticosteroids are designed to reduce inflammation. There's a lot on the market. Side effects are like drowsiness, dry mouth, dizziness, sometimes insomnia, sometimes nosebleed. I get a little worried about the corticosteroids because that also suppresses your adrenal function.
Yeah.
And so many of us are walking around, with decreased adrenal function as it is because of the environment that we live in, the stress, all of the things. So, I get a little worried about that. You can also get some nasal irritation.
Hmm.
And then there are certain vitamins and minerals, nutrients that are depleted from the body by being on all these antihistamines and these decongestants and over the counter
Yeah,
things.
and particularly the steroids, immune suppression and liver toxicity. And you often never, let me just say it this way, I've never seen a corticosteroid or corticosteroid drug. They list on the side effect liver congestion because it's like
Right.
not even acknowledged by the allopaths. It's like
Yeah.
when we detect hepatitis C, we'll tell you, like, what? Yeah, you have cirrhosis now, or as we say, 42% of all US adults have non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, and you're going to add a corticosteroid or any kind of liver tox. I mean, this is the disaster set up. Now, one of the things I want to mention, Lisa, and I've mentioned this in various lectures since I started back in the 90s on homeopathy, that I was told that I would grow out of it. Perhaps that would be the thing that would, when I asked, will I ever be done with this? Maybe you'll grow out of it. I'm like, well, turns out some people do as adults grow out of it. But what I didn't know at the time, and I do now, is that it's not a good sign. It means your immune system has been exhausted, depleted completely. You no longer have the vital force to
Mhm.
muster a response to something that you used to be responding to. And so I often say if you grew out of allergies and changed nothing in your life and you've been taking allopathic medicines, you're likely, I don't mean to scare anybody, but you're likely on the road to cancer. I say it because your immune system is telling me that. If you don't have an immune system intact, then where is it going, right? So
Right.
what we're talking about is giving you an option that doesn't suppress your immune system, but works with the vital force of the body to address the allergies you may have that may be more complicated, that we might be able to go to today all the way. But let's present a remedy or two or three, and we'll have a homeopathic hit to follow up as well.
Yeah, yeah. So when you're looking at seasonal allergies, it, in my opinion, it really is a multi-pronged approach because it can take a while to uproot, some of your seasonal allergies. Immune function is something that you really need to be looking at. We need to also be looking at gut function that cannot be ignored. Um, and I'm curious, like I want to know what made you susceptible to the allergies in the first place. So in my practice, that's why we do a very detailed case history,
Hmm.
because it's become a chronic issue. And so, what made you susceptible to those to begin with? And that's where I want to focus on, in terms of, going back to what we call the etiology or the beginning. Where did it start? What made you susceptible? Because you shouldn't, you should be able to encounter environmental allergens, and your body should be able to mount a response to it. And so if you can't, what's happening? Is it toxicity? Is it trauma? What's going on, in your life? How many layers was there this big trauma? And then all of a sudden after that, you started getting allergies? You know, was it a toxic injection, or was it a toxic drug that you took, or a
Mhm.
series of them? You know, what happened prior to all of a sudden these allergies expressing themselves?
Yeah, and I don't know that any doctor in my 10 plus years of going to allergy doctors and as a child asked that question once of my family, my parents.
Yeah.
Was
Yeah.
it what happened before? No. Oh, you're allergy. And it was more of an emerging field when I was the poster boy for allergies. It
Yeah.
wasn't like, oh, all kids have allergies. Like it, yeah, they knew of them, but I was like looking around going, man, what why isn't everybody like and there were more than ever in my dad's generation, rarely was that a big deal. It'd be a sniffle and move on with your day. So devastating for me that I couldn't go out at certain times of the year. So I believe I feel, when talk about I feel your pain. I feel your allergies. I've been there.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
to know what we're revealing today, oh, I wish I'd have known. But then again, I had to learn it the hard way, so I'd be able to talk with Lisa Rooney today about this good news of a homeopathic extended hit on how to address allergies.
You know, I think all of us in the healing space, we have had our issues as well, and that's part of what enables us to be able to really relate to our clients when they come to us and they're having those issues. And I
Mhm.
think, it, I look at it kind of as like a top down versus a bottom up approach. The top down approach is like, let's get rid of this symptom, let's suppress it, let's give you the shots, let's give you, the decongestants, let's suppress it.
Mhm.
But the bottom up approach, and this is what I love about homeopathy, is that we're going back to the etiology. We want to know what caused it, what made you susceptible, and how do we apply homeopathic principles, miasmatic principles, in my practice also Chinese five element, and how do we strengthen those organ systems and really uproot that condition.
Mhm.
So,
Mm.
top down, bottom up. I like the bottom up approach because the bottom up is also lifting up the vital force.
Yes.
That
Yeah,
is
exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. And you mentioned as well earlier the gut, and I always mentioned the liver. These are things that the allopathic allergist, even if they mean well, I don't know. Have they embraced this yet? Have they even looked at or is it just symptom management, which is all I experienced with all of the allergy shots and the drugs that I was on? And the symptoms, as you know, guide us in homeopathy for the selection of the remedies, but it isn't because we're trying to suppress them. We're trying to reactivate the vital force, correct something that's gone awry. And there may be other ways, not just one remedy, perhaps, but we might find one remedy that is like a miracle for us. In the midst of this, it's like, whoa, wait a second. I remember the first couple of weeks I started using homeopathy. One of my biggest indications that I was finally on the right course is that I suddenly was able to breathe out of my nose for the
Uh,
first time in recorded history for me without a drug. I was like, what is going on here? Now, I wasn't out of the woods in 2 weeks, but it showed me that I could get symptomatic relief as well. So for people that think it's only I'll never get relief, I still need the drug, it's not necessarily the case. You may get dramatic relief of those symptoms too.
yeah. Do you remember what the remedy was?
Well, at the time, it was a focal point on my liver, and I think it was calibichromicum,
Mhm.
calibi, but it may have been the one we're covering in a moment called Allium Cepa too.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's just been a long time, but yes,
Yeah, and I think, with hay fever allergy symptoms, there's so many different
a
symptoms.
lot of
So
crossover.
oftentimes there's lots of remedies that need to be used. But one of the things that I want to say is, we're talking about a ditch and switch. And so some of the, common ones out there are like Zyrtec and Allegra and what was the other one?
Are
Claritin.
where are the actual do they have the drug remedies in these images or just the homeopathics
No,
and
these are
other
just
things?
the homeopathics. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Um, so we're just getting ready to go into the ditch and switch. But what
Mm,
I wanted to say was, one of the things that I want us to remember is that in the case of allergies, like, we're giving you the option of getting rid of your Allegra or whatever it is to another a homeopathic remedy. But we don't want to. The ultimate goal is to not have you rely on these homeopathic remedies every single year. That you're having to take these remedies every single year.
right.
So we're giving you kind of that first step of like just replacing one with the other. We need to look deeper when it comes to allergies, and so that's kind of the
Yeah.
point that I wanted to make. Is like we really need to look deeper because you've got a chronic condition and you really probably need to work with somebody on that chronic condition.
Exactly. So would this be something that would be appropriate to say, "Hey, I'd like to talk to Lisa for 20 minutes and see if she can help me,"
Sure.
kind of thing? Yeah?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So, Super Don, you want to pull up the ditch
Okay.
and switch?
So the ditch and switch concept has taken out the allergy medicines. Now, we didn't have Zyrtec and Allegra back in the day. I mean, they've advanced them, but it's not always necessarily better. Usually it's more expensive because it's a newer drug that might be patented still and protected in monopoly status. But there are very inexpensive homeopathic remedies. All of them are relative to allopathic drugs in most cases, unless they've gone, generic, and then they could be cheap, but they're not cheap for your liver as you intoxicate with these drugs. So here are some options Lisa's bringing to our attention today for the ditch and
Yeah.
switch.
Yeah, so you've got so Highlands and Boron probably I would say kind of have the market in terms of some of these combination remedies. They're very widely available. You can get them over the counter. You can get them at any kind of health food store, Sprouts. Well, I guess they're not being carried at Foods
Yeah, Whole
anymore.
Foods is just abandoned Whole Foods, basically. They don't carry Sovereign Silver anymore. They don't carry a lot of homeopathics anymore. It's
Yeah,
just embarrassing. Yet you can get it on their parent company's Amazon site every day, I guess.
right. You can get a lot of this you can get on Amazon if you're a supporter of Amazon. So the Highlands allergy and the boron allergy relief.
Mhm.
Now, just as we've talked about before, you want to take a look at what are the indications because these are combination remedies that are going to have a lot of remedies in them, and you may have all of the conditions or you may have only a couple. So you're really just kind of narrowing down, okay, between this one and this one, which one fits my total symptom picture the best. So, with the Highlands, the remedies in there tend, for me, I say if sinus pain is a little bit more predominant, then you might want to start with the Highlands seasonal allergy relief.
Mhm.
But if you have the seasonal stuff and a cough, you've got a lot of abundant nasal discharge, burning in the eyes, then the combination of the boron product it might be a little bit better for you.
Yeah, and the opportunity to go deeper, as you point out, take a look at the ingredients. And we now, with each day with a new homeopathic kit, I give you a little overview so you're not as intimidated by opening up or researching a materia medica entry to that remedy.
Right.
Because even though there are a lot of indications on the labels, they're not even covering a fraction of all that could be something you wouldn't see on a label because it just can't fit everything.
Yes. And I've had clients that have said, you know what, I picked up this combination and I had half of this, and I picked up this combination and I had half of this. So I took both of them.
Right.
you know, so, we're talking about just the acute over the counter. These are really low potencies. There's no harm that's going to come from them. And they're a great way to get you kind of started on using homeopathic remedies.
Yeah, and they are when we talk about potencies or attenuations, they are lower potencies so that I feel like it's absolutely safe to utilize them. You're not going to overwhelm your system. That's why I always say when I do the homeopathic hits and I say, self-help, stay in that realm or range. And then if you need more help to nail that higher potency, you want to see if you got a little guidance because it can be the difference between success or not succeeding with those higher potencies, if you will. So that's part of why I love Lisa Rooney as an option for you guys to reach out and say, I need to go a little bit deeper. Please help.
Yep. Yeah, thank you. So this next one is I love this because it's based on zones. So this is like homeopathic. It's a homeopathic combination of all of the grasses and pollens and everything that you could be allergic to in your zone. And this is a great remedy. Speaking of homeoprophylaxis, this is a great remedy that you can begin taking prior to the season to help educate your body on this is what we're going to encounter. It knows how to fight, it knows how to respond to it. So the Allergena is a great one that you can use. Kind of, I like it really more in a prophylactic. You can continue to use it throughout the season, but I love to start it ahead of the season because you're prepping your body for what's coming.
Hmm. Very good.
And then these next two are they're the same. Newton's has this formula where they have one for spring and early summer, and then they have one for late summer and into the fall. And so you can utilize those as well. And the benefit of those two combinations, the Newton homeopathics, is that they have the grasses and pollens in them, but they also have the remedies to address the symptoms that are going to come up.
Exactly. So you have more options than you realize, but again, most people don't know to look at it. If they go to their pharmacy, it's mostly allopathic, although many of the pharmacies have started adopting some herbs and supplements and maybe some homeopathics. But then some of the big boys, like the Whole Foods of the world, have reduced access to this information where you normally find the remedies and they're not there. So that's why this, I believe, is a kind of a public service announcement every time we get to give you a little bit more detail on how to look for what options you have before you resort to. Maybe you
Yes.
don't even need to the allopathic options that have become first resort for most Americans.
Yeah, and if you are prone to allergies, you want to get on this now. We're already starting it in Georgia, but if you're not, in the South, then you really want to get on this now because you want to start prepping your system, educating your system as to how to respond to these allergens that you have reactions to.
Exactly, exactly. So, all right. So we got some other things to learn on when we ditch and switch, as well as detailed analysis of other remedies. But here's some other support that you have thrown out there
Yeah,
for consideration.
I'm a big fan of additional supplemental support when it comes to allergies. And I've seen huge differences when we've layered homeopathic remedies in and these, some of these supplements and some of these other things. So, quercetin is widely talked about. Vitamin C, vitamin A, bromelain. Bromelain helps to reduce that sinus inflammation. Stinging nettle is an herb that can block the histamine response. Spirulina. I think, do you have a product on your website that has spirulina in it?
We have, yeah. What was the one, Super Don? We've got, is it the energy bits? We
Yeah,
got chlorella and spirulina options there. It's really a clean source
That
that we've
yes.
utilized for years now. Yeah, energy
yep,
bits, right? Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
yeah.
So the spirulina helps to block histamine release and it modulates the immune system. So that's a great one. NAC helps to thin out the mucus and drain the sinuses. Butterbur, I don't have a ton of experience with butterbur, but it's one that came up consistently when I was looking at herbs for allergies because
Yeah.
it reduces the inflammation, like antihistamines. But the warnings were avoided if you're allergic to ragweed because it's not homeopathic form; it's an herbal form. So if
Right.
you're, totally different form. And then,
And, and just a real
then
quick message to Super Don. It's not butter beer from Harry Potter. I know every time we go homeopathic, you think Harry Potter. It's not butter beer, butter burr. Okay, just
I was
butterbur.
thinking about the boxer butterbean.
butterbean. Oh, yeah, I
That's right.
remember that. We actually used that image years ago in radio when you did a quick hit on something. I don't remember what that was, but anyway, good memories. So here we go. Local raw honey, and I even say bee pollen, but go ahead.
Yeah, get to your local farmers market and buy some local honey because this is going to help. It's that concept of what we're talking about, the homeoprophylaxis. It's the concept of educating your system on how to handle the pollen. So it helps to build that resistance because you're giving a little bit of it back into your system.
Mhm.
I love essential oils, eucalyptus, or any kind of blend that has eucalyptus in it. Steam tints are wonderful when you have all this sinus congestion. And then the neti pots or the nasal rinses can also be really helpful. Some people really like them, some people do not like them. Um, but it's worth giving it a try. Now, I wanted to say one thing about vitamin A because we have the measles thing going on as well. Vitamin A is not oftentimes talked about in terms of allergy support. And it really helps to regulate the histamine release in the system and it helps to heal the nasal passages. So, vitamin A is oftentimes recommended in a higher dose for a short course in order to help boost the system and regulate that histamine response. So, if you're working with a nutritionist or a naturopath or anything like that, and you're having, allergies, then talk to them about what doses, what's an appropriate dosage for you on vitamin A, because I know there's some concerns about toxicity.
Hmm. Exactly. And of course, from food sources, ideally, obviously, there's a lot of isolates that may not be appropriate or can be problematic. But for the most part, you have a recognition that, yeah, even people, and we covered this last week, I think, even people in well fed countries like America could be deficient in something like vitamin A, depending on their diet.
well, are most often efficient in these
Yes,
things because we're not in the soil anymore.
exactly.
Yeah, yeah,
Exactly. So, are we ready to reveal your focal point for a sinus kind of allergy, maybe even,
yeah,
well, breathing issues? Let's do it.
yeah. So we're talking about Allium Cepa today. And in those two formulas, actually the two remedies that we're talking about, Allium Cepa and Histaminum, are both in those combination remedies that I showed you on the screen.
Hmm.
So this is actually, I love to talk about this remedy because it gives people an idea of that principle of like cures like. So Allium Cepa is made from the red onion. And when we think about when you chop a red onion, what tends to happen? We get those watery, teary, itchy eyes, right? And that mimics the symptom that oftentimes accompanies hay fever and allergies. And that very beautifully illustrates the principle of like cures like. In a homeopathic form, we can take the remedy made from the red onion and apply it to an ailment that comes up with that teary, watery, itchy eyes. And in homeopathic potency, it tells the body what to do to help resolve that symptom.
It's one of the classic when people say, "What is this homeopathy thing?" I'm like, one of the easiest remedies to relate homeopathic principles is with Allium cepa, the red
Yeah,
onion, and
yeah,
chopping it up in your kitchen. And you're like, dude, I know those symptoms, right? And how do they mimic? Do they mimic things like a cold or an allergy? Absolutely.
yeah.
So, how do we then utilize it? And do we shove pellets in our nose? What do we do?
So, no, you just take the pellets under your mouth, under your tongue. So the physical keynotes, I'll talk about the top 5 physicals and the top 5 mentals, because the mentals are kind of interesting.
Mm.
So the physicals are profuse watery nasal discharge, kind of like a faucet, acrid burning secretions. They're going to irritate the nose and the upper lip. Um, a bland, watery eye discharge, or it could be burning, it could be itchy, but there's free flowing. So whether it's coming from the eyes or the nose, it's free flowing like a faucet. You might also have violent sneezing that occurs in rapid succession. And then, these cold symptoms, sometimes they begin a little bit on the left side. They might start in the left nostril that may later kind of move to the right. And then there's typically a headache also, uh, which is like a sensation of like fullness and pressure. And usually the person who needs Allium Cepa is going to be worse indoors and better outside. It's going to feel better when they go outside, although they don't want to go outside because they're having, the allergy symptoms. And the mentals of this remedy are irritability and restlessness. And they're agitated because because of how they feel, and they might really have kind of a negative reaction to even the scent of an onion. Confusion or foggy mind. So think about when you've got that congestion and your head feels like it's pounding all the time. You just can't think straight. You can't concentrate on anything. A lot of increased sensitivity to your environmental stimuli, and an aversion to light might be one of those. An aversion to company because you just don't feel good and you're like, I just want to go lay down. And low energy and sluggishness. And I thought, when I read those top 5, I was like, wow, that's exactly what happens when you get that that sinusy,
Mhm.
hay fever, cold kind of thing going on. You're tired, you're foggy, you've got all these symptoms going on. You don't want to socialize, you don't want to go to the party, you just want to lay down and just be left alone.
Exactly. Again, beautiful, bigger picture here with Allium Cepa as an entry level remedy for those that haven't explored it. It's one of the easiest ones to see great benefit. It's not all exhaustive as we talk about the crossover of different manifestations of allergies and colds and head colds and things like that, and even into other symptoms that you might find. Well, I didn't know. I thought you said it was for a cold. Look, I'm reading this, and it's not. It's so much more. But we can never, even in a full hour, encompass everything each remedy could do.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, one of the things that it can be used for is eye irritations when, you've got that red watery eyes, yes, from allergies, but it could also be from smoke exposure, or it could be from some other environmental, irritant. So that's just kind of an example. It's not only just colds, it could be from something, something else.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. All right. So remedy wise, as I said, potencies, I've always said the right remedy trumps the right potency. It
Mhm.
becomes a clinician's experience to some degree, theoretically some degree, but really the right remedy is much more important. So if you only have a 6X or a 6C or a 12X or a 15X or a 30X, use the right remedy. If it matches it, don't worry. Don't over, people can get that deer in the headlights look. I don't know what to take. It's the right. It's like potency. Don't overwhelm yourself with that. If you have it and it
Absolutely.
matches, take it. You're going to be better off than not.
Yep, I agree 100%. I tell people if you're prone to this, you might want to have it in a 6C, a 30C, maybe even a 200C.
Mhm.
Um, kind of going back to what we said in the beginning, I love Roger Morrison's desktop guide. I don't know if you've looked in that Materia Medica, but he has some great descriptions of the remedies. And one of the things he said is that this remedy may cure up to 1/3 of all acute cases of allergic rhinitis, at least for that season. But pure permanent cure requires deeper acting remedies once the acute symptoms have been relieved. So that kind of goes back to what we were talking about. There's a deeper thing going on with allergies that we really need to take a look at. But having it in a 6C or a 30C or even a 200C, you can play around with the potencies. I love to start low and then move up.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier to move up in potency than it is to kind of start and then go, okay, do I go up or do I go down? What do I do next?
Right.
So, starting with a 6C a couple of times a day it might just do the trick for you.
Yeah, I'm with you. I like to start low and then move up. You can always move up. Harder to back down once you got that energy in you at
Mhm.
that point. We get into other discussions that I'm not ready to have today about counteracting and what do you do? It could be overwhelming. I don't want to go there. So let's just work slowly on up and follow your symptoms. They're your guide. As I said, we're not suppressing them like an allopathic medicine, but if they go away, it means vital forces work. It's like you no longer need them. That's
Yeah,
different.
absolutely. Absolutely. So I hope that people find some success with some of the things that we've talked about, because I know seasonal allergies can really be challenging. My daughter had them for a couple of years, and I just kept working on the vital force, kept working on the vital force, and each year we just got a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better. I want to say it was maybe probably a solid 3 or 4 years before we really saw like, oh, I'm good.
Mhm. Yeah.
Here it was better. Yeah.
Yeah, as I said, I got symptomatic relief very quickly, but I had a lot of work to do to overcome many of the chronicities that I carried with me from allopathic suppression for the first 18,
Mhm.
19 years of my life. And, a few years running around in the wilderness trying to figure it all out till I found homeopathy and went organic, all the things that have changed my life for the better and been able to allow me to raise kids that are healthy and not chronically ill like I was and like my wife was, because we were also, both allopathically raised, if you will.
Yeah.
So I want to do beyond the extended homeopathic hit on allergies and Allium Cepa, another remedy that could be used in accompaniment of this when allergies are present. And then we'll leave a few minutes at the top of the hour. We had a good question about the morbillium when we get back to the measles. So we'll talk about that as well before we're done here. So, Super Don, thanks to Lisa Rooney. We've got an extended homeopathic hit and we got our regular condensed homeopathic hit, and it's related to the topic. Let's go.
Playing all of the homeopathic hits every day, right here on the Robert Scott Bell Show.
All right. This is one related to this allergy topic, and I want to thank as well, of course, Scent Nutrition for their wonderful products, including their pine pollen extract, pine needle extract, all the good stuff I love taking from them. Better Way Health, talk about immune modulation. Yes, an immune system thing. Absolutely appropriate for allergies. The beta glucan, Folium PX, of course, reducing that environmental toxin burden as well. And of course, Lisa Rooney, vibrantlife247.com. She's with me now, and we'll talk to you again about how to consult with her if you'd like. But this one is Histaminum or Histaminum. It's Latin. I don't complain. However you want to say it is fine. Remedy also indicated for allergies, histamine reactions, and inflammatory conditions of all kinds. It is histamine isolated and converted into a homeopathic form. And we know what histamine does in the body. And so it's very easy, like Allium Cepa as an onion, what it does when you have the symptoms. It's not a difficult one to understand for allergic reactions, histamine sensitivity. If you have hives and itching, runny nose, watery eyes, respiratory congestion, if it could be triggered by allergies, it could be triggered from pollen, right? Or dust. So you have chronic inflammation and autoimmune conditions. Histamine becomes a chronic, not friend. You don't like it, but it's there in the reactionary phase for a long time for many people with allergies. So systemic inflammatory conditions, skin issues, histamine intolerance, respiratory conditions, even asthma, bronchial constriction, wheezing, difficulty breathing. So these are all often allergy triggered, not exclusively. And as we talked about potencies with Lisa, low potencies to start. If you really want to nail a higher potency, I suggest consulting with someone like Lisa to match those pictures very accurately so you succeed and you don't waste your efforts. Here again, one of the complementary remedies even to homeopathic histaminum. Allium Cepa, we just covered it. How about Apis mellifica? Interesting. Swelling, itching, hives associated with allergic reactions, even some maybe anaphylaxis if you're going a little further. Cali chromicum or Cali B, depending on how you say it. Another adjunct for histaminum, especially for sinus related congestion issues. Sulfur may work with the skin conditions, but as I've said, my caution about sulfur is that, yeah, it's a great remedy and it was one of Hahnemann's favorites. It doesn't seem to have the same impact. You read it, you think, oh, it's going to work for everything. Well, when it doesn't, you got to acknowledge a lot of changes that have happened in the 200 plus years since that environmentally. So, as I wrap up this homeopathic hit with Lisa Rooney, have her add her info into the mix as well. Remember, this is informational, educational. I want you to have this information so you have an informed capacity to make I would say a better decision, but a more informed decision is usually a better one, and then be able to act on the information. So please support the Alliance for Natural Health and Jonathan Emord as they've sued the FDA to get homeopathy back in line to where it should be by the CPG 400.400 reactivated. So that's coming up too. So Lisa, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, what I think is so cool about this remedy is this is a great example of how we can take something that is out of balance in the body and give it back to the body in potency. And and the body goes, oh, okay, now I know what to do. And it helps the body to balance out that response. So that's one of the things that I love about histaminum. I have some friends who actually use it who have allergies to cats.
Mm.
And so they will take a dose of histaminum anytime they're going into a house that has had cats. This was one that I used quite a bit with my daughter. This is one that is in all of those formulas that we've talked about. So it's a really great remedy.
Yes, nice adjunct that you can do safely. It's not toxic. It's not like you're taking histamine in quantity from another whatever. You're taking it safely as a homeopathic remedy, so to speak. And that's a wonderful thing. Now, for those that want to reach out to Lisa, pull up her website again, Super Don. I want to show everybody visually for those that haven't figured out how to work the site, which is fairly straightforward. If you want to reach out to Lisa beyond our time together with our extended homeopathic hits and ditch and switch, much less when she can show up on our Saturday once a month when we do our next one. It's the 29th of March, 10 days from now, our AMA with our on Zoom for our patron supporters. And it's a bonus when she can show up. It's fun. We have a lot of fun there. But if you click on the website, Super Don, you go to Vibrant Life 24/7. You can see accessibility, work with me, it says, and
Yep.
click on that, right? And then we should have an opportunity to look at all the different ways. You can book a discovery call with Lisa. That's what I want you to know.
Yeah, that's the best thing to do is just click on that link. You can go through and you can see what I offer, but and click on the read more to learn more about what each of the packages entail. But when you're ready, just book a discovery call with me, and you'll get on my calendar. We'll talk for about 20 or so minutes, maybe 30 minutes, and we'll kind of dig into a little bit about what's going on, kind of service level, but we'll
Yeah.
dig into what's going on as much as we can in that time frame, and then we'll figure out what I offer, if one of my packages that I offer works for you, and
Mhm.
then we can move forward.
Well, I appreciate you doing that so much. I mean, people are so desperate for, I don't even know who I can reach out to. And, oftentimes they'll have to spend hundreds of dollars to find out that it's not right for them. And you were so kind to open this up to say, hey, let's just check it out together and see. And then say, here's what offered. Or you might even encounter someone who says, I don't think, it'll work for you because you can see their focus is different than really going deep like this.
Yeah.
So don't feel like there's an obligation, y'all, but I think you'll love to consult with Lisa Rooney. I just have that sense about you, Lisa.
Thank you. Well, this
The
is,
feedback's
it's a
been great.
relationship. For
Yes.
me, it's a relationship, and especially, because because I'm also a coach,
Yeah.
and we're working together, not only just homeopathically, but with all of the other stuff that's going on in your life. It,
Mhm.
it really has to be a good relationship for both of us, and I want my clients to feel like they can trust me, that I can hold this space for them, and
Mhm.
I want to feel like they're really invested in their own growth because I'm taking that time and holding that space for them. And so it's kind of a two-way street that we really spend time just getting to know each other.
Yeah, wonderful. You guys have an option. You do, beyond our homeopathic hits. Now, here's a great follow-up question from our buddy Chris. What do you think of the morbillinum nosal? You mentioned it briefly. He says he's read testimonials that it's worked well to boost antibodies, and a few who say it didn't boost antibodies at all, which is also the case for the MMR2 vaccine. Can such nosodes work to stimulate production of other immune cells that vaccines don't? That's a great question. Let me just first and foremost share that briefly, a story where I work with a young lady who was going into nursing school who did not want to get the MMR shot as an adult. She knew better. Yet they said, you have to. And she said, what if I tied her for the measles? And apparently she had never had it. If she knew she had the measles, she didn't think she had it. We started her on the actual, we converted the MMR shot, all of that, into a homeopathic, which is not technically a nosode, but it was sort of directed at what they were looking for. And she was taking it at low potency. If I remember correctly, it might have been a 10x or 15x, but daily, hitting it, hitting it, hitting it. Within a couple of weeks, she started to manifest, if you will, or prove the remedy a little bit. She started developing like a measles manifestation, little
Yeah.
fever. And she got a titer and tested positive for the measles. And they said, okay, you can come in. And that was with the MMR converted into a homeopathic. Now, the morbillinum, I don't know that it will elicit definitively. That's not even what its intent is, but is it possible? I would say yes, but I don't think you necessarily need antibodies. Immunology says you don't. You can still not suffer, or even if you have them, you can still suffer. So it isn't the holy grail that they think it is.
Yeah, I think I think we want to be in this place where we can actually test it and we can verify it. But just, to your point, I've had girlfriends whose children got all the vaccines and they didn't have any antibodies at all. And
Mhm.
so, I think it's an imperfect system. It's an imperfect thing to measure by. So, if you choose to go with a homeoprophylaxis program or morbillium or some of these other, remedies, I think that you have to let go of that I'm definitely going to get antibody
Right.
response. It's going to be measurable because it may not be. But you also have to remember that it may not be if you get the vaccine as well.
And it's not necessary for prevention of disease. That's the point I've tried to make all these years. Their holy grail of antibodies is like, dude, you can still get sick with them. You can
Mhm.
still not get sick without them.
Yeah.
So what's the point, right? But the
It's
point is,
really about
yeah,
it's really about educating. It's about
yeah.
educating the immune system. It's about saying when you encounter this out in the world, this
Mhm.
is what you need to do because it gives that blueprint, that memory in your body of what to do when you encounter that illness.
Yeah.
And that's how we want to think about it. It's education of the immune system. It
All
raises
right.
the vitality and educates the immune system.
Lisa Rooney, such a joy. You are the homeopathic remedy for depression. If anybody's depressed, we,
Ah,
we listen to Lisa and we get all elated and happy. And it's like, oh, yeah, this has been fun. This has been awesome. And you guys now know a lot more what to do for allergy season coming up, homeopathically and otherwise. And please reach out to Lisa. And I don't know, Lisa, when you're next available, like if you want to join us on, you're always welcome on our
yeah,
Zoom AMAs. It's
I'm gonna look at my schedule for the end of this month and see if I can join. I think there is a soccer tournament, but I'm gonna see if I can.
And even if you say hello for a few minutes, that's fine. But no obligation. But it's fun to have you. And I thank you for being on board for the Ditch and Switch today. And you guys check her out at vibrantlife247.com. Yes. Now
Yeah,
coming up. Thank you, Lisa. We
thank
got
you.
another doctor, a physician. She's a wonderful young lady, I shall say, because I knew her since she was 14 years old, long before doctoring. And she's grown up to be a wonderful physician. And she works with um, a lot of mental and spiritual issues and works with the medicinal mushrooms, psilocybin. So I'm going to revisit some of the discussion and ask some more questions of Dr. Lita Fatimi coming up in hour two. And also Ty Bollinger's back, and we're going to cover the JFK release. What's coming up? What do we learn about the assassination attempt? So there's a power-packed hour coming up, Lisa.
Yeah, sounds good.
Might need a remedy for it. So thank you for being here.